Back in the shop again today. We got another Jeep in here. Going to do another radio install. This one's going to be a little more involved because it is a brand new JL. So a little newer, a little fancier than what I'm used to working on. It's the first time I've done a radio install on a JL, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. So we'll start like we always do with an antenna mount on the outside. As usual, step one is the cowl. This one should be T40 bolts here. Yep, T40. So we're going to pull this whole cowl off because we're going to use that area underneath there to run the wires. But to use the mount we're using, we actually just need to pull one of these bolts out. But like I said, we're going to pull the whole thing off and get it out of the way. And then this, just like that, slides right out. Okay, so now that we got the panel off here, there's basically two easy ways to get the wire into the cab on the JL. One is down under the hood here. There's actually a grommet. I think it's clutch pedal delete plate for these Jeeps that are automatics. They just put a plug in the firewall where the clutch rod's supposed to go through. The other way is right here. You can run, this is where cowl was obviously, right up in here. You can run your wire through here, and then I'm going to take you around to the other side. From the inside of the Jeep here, we have to pop this panel off here. The wire is going to come through about right there. We got to pop this panel off, and we got to pop this big panel off here. So I'm just going to use some panel tools, some plastic tools. This is a brand new Jeep. I don't want to get anything metal touching paint anywhere, so I've got some panel pry bars. We're going to pry this out, and we're going to get that antenna cable run through there. All right. Well, you can see right here at the handle of my screwdriver, I just got a long screwdriver, and you can see the tip of it poking out over there. There's just a piece of foam that runs behind that trim. So I just kind of made our life a little easier and pre-poked the foam with a screwdriver. Now we're going to run the end of the antenna cable through. If you're running antenna cable, I can't recommend highly enough this Midland cable. This end is so nice to be able to screw the big SO239 connector off and just have this little end. It's about a 1/4, 3/8 diameter there. Makes it so much easier to run through here. You can see actually when I get it down here next to my screwdriver, it's about the same size as my screwdriver that I just poked through that hole. So highly, highly recommend these. And on the other end of the cable is a standard Nemo mount that works well for these GMRS and ham type radio antennas. But I can't recommend these enough. The other option is to get bare coax cable and actually crimp the ends on yourself so that you're just running the coax by itself. But this end is so small, it's barely bigger in diameter than the coax. Works really, really well. Okay, after a little bit of fussing and poking, we were able to, you can see the cable here just run right up underneath. Basically runs right behind this drain tube that comes off the roof. Runs right up through there. There's a little bit of a gap in there. I did take a long-handled screwdriver and come from the inside just to make sure that it poked all the way through there, and we kind of opened up the hole a little bit. And as we back up here, you can see where the cowl goes, and this wire is going to get run. It runs down here in the cowl, and it's going to pop out down here. And we're going to put that cowl piece back on. I'll show you what that looks like. You can see this is the bolt that came with the bracket. On the back side here, there's a little spacer that goes in there because these bolts on the JL are recessed. So there's a recess there. So over here they give you a little spacer to go behind your bracket so that it fills up that recess and you can clamp this down tight. And they gave us a bolt. So that's about where it sits. Has a little bit of a gap here so the metal's not sitting against your body panel. And then you just reuse the other 3 bolts that come with your cowl. First, you can get those tightened down. And you can see our Nemo mount's going to poke up right there. And our wire runs back through this gap right here. And it just runs through there and under our cowl. And then winds up and goes into our cab right through there. As you can see, wire coming through is a success. Now the next step is getting this panel off. I wanted to show you a little trick I just discovered on getting this off. Kind of hard to get the your panel tool in the front right here to pop this off. But I just discovered if you push on the back of the panel right there, it pops the crack out real easy, and you can get a panel tool in there real slick. to start working those clips out. So I thought I'd share that with you. But easy way to get in there, I just pushed on the back right there, and that popped out the front corner enough that we were able to get it in there. Down under the dashboard of the Jeep here, we got this side panel pulled off, running this wire down through here. And I wanted to show you another quick little trick I just discovered. There's a gap right here between this kick plate and this dash panel, and you can actually take your wire and just push it through that little gap right there. You can see that. And now we're back under the wire. You don't have to come around from this side and try to feed it through here. You can start on this side and just feed it through that little crack right there. All right, we're under the front seat here, under the steering wheel right here. This kick panel. This one's real easy. You don't need any tools for this one. You can actually just come down here on the bottom and just pull, and it just pops out, and those clips just pop out all the way around. You want to be careful with these up here because they're just a little piece of plastic up there, but on both sides. But you just reach in there, pull that out, and that's all you got to do to get that panel off. And now we've got access. And what we're going to do, now that we're under here, we're going to take our antenna wire. We're going to get up behind here. We're going to tie to this bar right here, make sure. I'm going to pull our carpet down just a little bit on this side, just to expose what we're doing. Okay, you can see right here, we got our wire stuffed through there. It actually found out it comes out underneath this bracket. This bracket's on both sides. You can take that bracket out of the way, make it a little easier, but we got it to feed through there without too much problem. But we got our cable out here, our antenna cable out here. The next step is wiring. So fortunately, this Jeep, well, that probably shouldn't have come off there. We'll have to put another one on there. Right here, this is tucked up. There's a wiring harness up underneath your dashboard right here on these JLs. This is your auxiliary wiring. There's this out here on this end, and then underneath the hood there's actually another set of these, so if you're wiring something outside. But this is for wiring inside the Jeep, and this just is controlled by the aux switches up here on the dashboard. So now we're going to figure out, I know under here that there's 5 wires. It's actually 6 wires. So there's 4 of these that are controlled by the switch. One of them is a constant power, and I believe one of them is a ground. So you have all of the wiring connections you need to make, or all the wiring you need to make any of the connections right there in that little pigtail. So we're going to spin this back a little bit and do some test lighting, or I may just do some YouTube University, see if I can figure out the wiring diagram colors on these. But we're going to wire this radio to one of the aux switches. Then I'm going to show you how we're programming it in the dash. Love these aux switch options on these JLs because of the programmability and how you can change how the switch works. So once we get this wired, at the end here, I'll show you how we program those switches. Down here on the side of the shifting column here, and we decided right here was the best place to mount this. This little circle that you can see right here, this is a cap. There's a bolt under there that's, if you need to take your console apart, you have to pull that cap, and there's a bolt under there. I didn't want this covering that, so we are going to mount it here so that it just clears that cap, so we can get the cap off and get that bolt out if we need to. And just for aesthetics wise, we're lining up the bracket with the seam in the console there, lining it up straight. We just punched a couple holes through there with a drill bit, and so we'll just run some panel screws in there, and then when we get it set where we want it, we'll run a screw through that middle hole just to lock everything in place. Okay, quick update on where we're at. Here's our wiring harness down here. We looked it up. We decided we're going to use auxiliary switch 4. That happens to be the blue wire, so we just hooked our hot up to our blue wire on auxiliary switch 4. The rest of our ends here, I'm going to tape those up so they're back up out of the way, and put them back up under the dash here. I think I'm going to zip tie it up to the wiring harness in there. And this one here, this is our ground wire. You can see right here, I pulled out a bolt. We checked that, there's good ground there, so we're just going to run this. There's a hole right here. We're just going to stick this up through the hole, maybe, when I have 2 fingers anyway, 2 hands. Stick it up through the hole right here and come out. hook that ground wire right there, and that'll be grounded. Then you can see we still got to tuck the carpet, but the power cable will run up underneath the dash there. Like I said, I got to get that carpet tucked back up in there, but it'll run up there, and then the power and the antenna cable will come out right there. And you can see where we've got our radio mounted here, mounted the speaker side out. You can change that if you want, but we'll get this hooked up and then finish tucking these wires up and out of the way, and I'll give you a final shot when we get that done. Give you one more quick shot under here. You can see the bolt here with our ring eye connector on it, and it just dips down underneath there to our wiring connector. And then up under here, I just zip tied the rest of our wiring. You can see it up underneath there. Hopefully you can see that. Just zip tied it to some existing wiring up there so it stays up out of the way. You can see the wiring running over. Tucks up behind all the carpet here. Behind all the carpet there. You can see we left the connector exposed so that if he does want to take this out, easy to disconnect it right there, but then everything else is just kind of tucked behind the panels to keep it out of the way as best we could. Antenna connection comes down. Stuck in there speaker side out so that we get the best volume we can out of it mounted down there. And now last thing is to program the auxiliary switches and get it fired up. Underneath the driver's side here, you can see where we tucked up all our extra antenna cable. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't do this, but it doesn't really affect anything. I've never had an issue with it coiled this way, coil it that way, all the time. Never had any issues. So, but you got that nice bar under there. Everything's tucked up. We'll put the panel back on. You won't even know any of that's there. All right, give you a quick wrap up here. You can see we got the radio microphone. It's on. Everything works. You can see the red transmit button comes on. We push the button, and the Jeep is running right now. Now this gentleman, he wanted it wired so that the radio would only come on when the vehicle was running. So we decided to wire it to the aux switches down here. It has the aux switch package, and we've got it wired to aux switch 4. And I'm going to show you why we did that. So if you hit your settings button here, click aux switches. You got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Aux 1 and 2 are a 40 amp circuit. 3 and 4 are a 15 amp circuit. So we've got this wired to aux 4. So we're going to click aux 4 here. And you see this is our options that we have for our switching. So type latching or momentary. That's pretty straightforward. Latching means when you push it, it stays on all the time. Momentary, if you were to select that, would only work when you push and held the switch in. So number 2 is power source. So you have the option of battery or ignition. Now he wanted this only on when the vehicle's on, so we've checked the ignition button. Easy to switch on these. If you decided that you wanted it on straight to the battery, all you have to do is click that button and it changes the setting in there, and now that circuit would stay on even when the Jeep was off. But he wants it on the ignition. Now the last thing we're going to do here is this recall last state. So this is a great function as well. It will, if you check this, it will leave that switch, aux switch number 4, in whatever state it was when the vehicle was running. So that next time you start it, it'll start in that same configuration. So we're going to do that here because we want the aux switch to come on all the time when the Jeep turns on. So we're going to click the recall last state button. You can see down here, aux number 4 is on. The Jeep is running. We've backed out of our menu screen one step to save our setting changes. Now we're going to shut the Jeep off. You can see the Jeep shuts off. Down here, auxiliary switch 4, the light shut off. So now we're going to come back up here, put our foot on the brake, push the button. Jeep starts back up. We go back down here, and our aux 4 light is on. So I love these aux switches in these Jeeps. This is one of the best things they could have done for you. Now he can select when that radio turns on and off, what state the switch is all the time. Super clean setup, super clean install on this. Really excited. So this was, like I said, my first JL radio install. Went really well. Super slick install, super clean. Loved it at the end. We're going to get this one back to the gentleman that sent it over. He had a friend bring it over today so that we could get it wired up for him. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that JL radio install.